come through and made this event affordable for everybody to attend by making it free. So, so let's give a warm welcome to Tony and take it.
Hello everyone, I'm Tony Sakich. I apologize for my lateness, and of course there's always issues getting things set up, so I'm going to try to cover as much as I can. Always happy to stay afterwards to answer some questions and things like that. Every time I've done a presentation like this, there's questions. And I'll talk a little bit more in the presentation about the other times I've been in Detroit and talked about this stuff. So, and it's been an interesting week or two, so it's a good time to talk about it. First, like a little bit of my background. Basically, I had an interest in open source tech from the minute I heard about it and the minute I got my first computer, which was around 1997, 1998. I was fascinated by the ideology. I was obsessed. It was brand new to me, so I basically devoured all information I can. I learned about things like Linux and other projects that are out there, and that's kind of where it started. To build on that was my interest in P2P technology and decentralization. It's kind of a way to protect not only free speech, but file distribution, and many other things kind of drew me to these ideals, and something that grew and grew and ended up getting me here today. I worked for Eminem's Ferndale-based record label, which my friend Kay Fresh in the back actually helped me get that gig, so thank you. I was 18 or 19, and it was a pretty cool job for someone my age, but it didn't take me long to kind of realize that my opinions of where things in the music industry should be were drastically different from what everyone in the industry at the time thought, which led to some interesting conversations that I'm not going to go into, but if anyone wants a fun anecdote later, I'm more than happy to share that. I graduated from Open University in 2009 with a degree in marketing, about as far from tech as you can get, but this was always a personal passion. It wasn't anything that I pursued in academia. Discovered Bitcoin in 2012, and as it says, for 2 years, my friends and family pretty much thought I was nuts. My mom said that my obsession with internet funny money is ridiculous. And she, to some degree she was right, but in another degree it was the common perception at the time to basically just question it, because it's really combating something that everyone is taught from the minute they're born. It rivals religious beliefs and political beliefs is what money is. You know, everyone has a parent that says money doesn't grow on trees, and you need this to survive. Everyone is taught that. That's like, it's like believing in Santa Claus. Almost every kid has that belief, and fighting that, or what money is really difficult. And what happens is sometimes you need to attack that from a different position, because as soon as you say something about a new way to basically make a financial transaction, it gets deep. And when it gets deep, basically what happens is you end up confusing people, and believe me, this technology is very confusing, and they, of course, don't believe it. And this is funny, because in the city of Detroit, there was a piece, I think, in the Detroit News back in November on Bitcoin. Every single reply, I think they were all Facebook replies, was saying just, this is a scam, these people are idiots. And I was like saying, okay, well, I actually agree that Bitcoin is not a great investment strategy, but it's an amazing technology. And there was just a lack of understanding of what it's good for, what it's not, why it isn't just snake oil. And it seemed to be that attitude was very, very prevalent in this area, among others, but it still remained this prevalent as recent as November. So that's why I want to do events like this and get as many people out to kind of say, okay, I may want to know a little bit more about this, but let's start somewhere and maybe get someone to understand this, because the thing is, there's so much opportunity in this space right now, and I'm going to go into that in a little while. And even though I had to move to work in this space, Detroit is my home, and it always will have a place in my heart. So I definitely love doing things like this. I'm speaking in New York actually in a week, and we have something like 225 RSVPs. This to me is much more important, don't tell them that. But even though there'll be bankers there, people from Microsoft, among other large organizations, Detroit is the area where I'd like to see some more interest and more projects being started. Yep. So I love it.
You're making bunny ears on the screen.
I'm sure I am. Someone asked me to step to talk in the light for filming. So cool. Thank you for the heads up. And sorry to those who can't see me. Feel free to shuffle around. Go for it. By the way, some still think I'm crazy, and maybe I am a little bit for liking this stuff. But what's happened is perspectives have changed. It went from my mom's financial advisor telling her that I'm nuts to him asking her, I want to learn more about this, which those are the kind of things that happen slowly over time with tech. And it's natural and normal, but it's kind of nice to see people now recognizing that this is something worth pursuing. So my very real journey in this space, almost the end of about me, is 2014. I joined BitPay. It's a payment processor, and at the time, probably one of the 2 largest companies in the space. Had some awesome events and opportunities and successes in 2014. Gave away $10,000 in Bitcoin over Twitter. It was a really unique social media campaign. Used some relationships I developed from Warner Brothers Records to my friend Shooter Jennings, MMA fighter John Fitch, to basically give people money. Giving someone $200 on Twitter is no surprise, probably the best way to get social engagement for any campaign you have. So, needless to say, huge success. ESPN loved it and wanted to learn more, and it ended up being something that I'm very proud of, especially because it cost BitPay pretty much nothing to do. I managed the production and hired everything to do with the first 2 nationally televised Bitcoin commercials, which also occurred on ESPN. Managed media campaigns with Microsoft, Warner, Newegg, PayPal, a bunch of others, getting tons of press, because 2014 was the year where nothing got clicks like Bitcoin news. So it was really an interesting and fun year. Is there any way I could get a sip of water?
Yeah, I have water.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to try them out, of course, as soon as I start talking. Thank you. So while at BitPay, there was other things that were interesting that I was a part of. The first being the launch of Copay, which was one of the first multi-sig wallets, and it's completely open source. It's a little technical term that really isn't relevant, but I'm mentioning it. Partnership with country singer Shooter Jennings, 50% and the metal band Mastodon. We were praised and named for our Reddit engagement, something that at the time, and still now, when I talk to people who do things in social media, Reddit's like, what? You do that? It's actually more important to what this space is than Twitter, Facebook, or any of the other channels that everyone loves to talk about. And I personally acquired new merchants, put on my sales hat and reached out to them and integrated them and kind of took them from A to Z. It was awesome to have these other skills because you need to understand how the product works to sell it. So, now to the meat and potatoes of this, and to the vegetarians, whatever else part of the meal you like the most, or vegans too, blockchain tech. So the simple definition is the public ledger of every transaction that's occurred on a decentralized network. And I'm using Bitcoin because it was the first blockchain technology to exist. It's constantly growing, it's gigabytes big, and it's never going to get smaller. And every person that runs a node on the Bitcoin network, or any blockchain network, stores the complete blockchain on their hard drive. The blockchain enables increased security, as well as complete transparent database of every transaction ever. So when you hear things like, oh, Bitcoin's anonymous, and there's all these things, well, it's pseudonymous, and in reality, it's much easier to follow the cash flows than any other currency or payment system in history. Something that I think the law enforcement have recently realized is actually a great thing for them when they're doing investigations. I think there's a lot of perspectives that have changed in that scenario, at least from what I've heard.
Especially when they stole.
What was that?
When they stole and got caught.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So essentially, yes,
didn't
someone.
realize it wasn't quite so anonymous.
Exactly. It's a big scandal that happened a year or 2 ago, and there's tons of big scandals in Bitcoin, and a lot of them are entertaining, a lot of them are sad, but they all were necessary to weed out the bad actors. There were plenty of them. So there's 2 blockchains right now that are really popular. At this time, Bitcoin, obviously, it's been going on since 2009. The network's pretty much bulletproof. It's existed, and nothing's really changed. Now, people have gotten hacked, and their computers have been compromised where the Bitcoin's stolen, but that's an issue of computer security and not an issue of the security of the platform. If you're not protecting your private keys that are needed to access and send other people your Bitcoin, if you're not protecting that, regardless of how strong the network is, your wallet that is storing the Bitcoin is not secure. That's basically what it comes down to. The other is one that's really grown a lot in the past month even, and I'd say 6 months, which is Ethereum. It's a project that I'm much more interested in at this point, because I think that's where all the really interesting projects are happening. It's a Turing-complete blockchain, which means essentially you can run code on this giant network of computers that I half-jokingly refer to as Skynet. It fully launched in July of 2015, and it basically allows users to write sophisticated smart contracts, which is something that I will discuss a little more soon. Decentralization is a very important aspect to everything I'm talking about. As you can see, these are different sorts of networks. Decentralized is what Bitcoin represents. it's a necessary aspect for this technology to work. It really is this, for lack of a better way to describe it, is the central piece of the technology. As I mentioned earlier, it consists of nodes that are not only contributing processing power, but storage space for the blockchain to the network. The benefits, it's global. The network can exist around the world at any time, and for something like Bitcoin, there's one currency. So sending funds to Cuba is just as easy as Brazil, just as easy as Australia, etc. The node consensus provides increased security as every node checks the work of other nodes and other new transactions to confirm that they're indeed legitimate. And it eliminates the possibility of shutdown or corruption that may exist in a centralized system. Let's say that there's a bank, and I wouldn't say a bank is a good example actually, because there's too many good safeguards, and I say that in a positive way. Let's say that any kind of financial system where a human can be corrupt, from an embezzlement scheme by an accountant to more sophisticated plots, that's eliminated because no human is a custodian of funds in a smart contract. It's all done with code. So now here's the Ethereum part. It's Turing complete, as I mentioned, and smart contracts are a really important part to it. The original goal of the project is to decentralize the web, because the web is very centralized. Almost all the traffic on the web, whenever you go to a website, is really going to Amazon Web Services. A little are going to Google, and a little bit are going to Microsoft. Majority are Amazon right now. They exist in that one space, and if they decide that they don't want people accessing that information anymore, they can immediately shut that down. It is a more evolved version of Bitcoin, essentially. It's known as blockchain 2.0 or Bitcoin 2.0 because of the ability to run code, as I mentioned earlier. Raised $18 million for development in 2014. At the time, I think it was the 4th biggest crowdfunding project of all time. And I think it stayed there, but I'm not sure, because that changes a lot, as you'll hear in a minute. Apps can be developed on top of the Ethereum network, which is really the key, and that's where the coolest things are happening right now. They have access to a very unique and new way to fund a project, which is a lot of what I'm going to go into. That's why I'm not rushing through this, but I'm trying to get through this as quick as possible, because that's something I think that would be the most interesting. Currently, the two largest supporters, as far as corporate interests go, are IBM and Microsoft, with Samsung following behind them loosely. They're contributing open source ideas, projects, and some manpower to these protocols and building things on top of them, in addition to Microsoft's Azure platform being very friendly to projects, including the one I'm involved with, Augur. We are actually allowing nodes to be hosted actually on the Azure platform. So the first year of Ethereum has been interesting, and it's still not over yet, but I'm just saying year one because I'm a Batman fan. So there was a big conference in November, and that was the moment that kind of blew my mind. I was able to watch it at home. I was invited to speak, but I couldn't make it, which is heartbreaking now because of how much I thought of the speakers. Every person that presented were presenting a new project. There's been, in my opinion, somewhat of a stagnation in regards to Bitcoin projects. I saw the opposite here. I saw all these great new ideas that were just coming at a rapid pace. And some were out there and crazy and I don't think will ever work, and some were very practical. It really was a great event. And it was also there where Microsoft announced a partnership with Consensus. They were the main sponsor, and that came out of that as well. The conference featured a keynote presentation by this guy named Nick Szabo, who many suspect is Satoshi Nakamoto, who is the anonymous creator of Bitcoin, and regardless of what you've heard, it's not the Australian guy. Even if he's not, he's very influential to the idea, and he's someone who does not do a lot of public speaking events or stage at all. This may have been his first. So it was a huge get, and it kind of showed that some of the best minds in this space are really supporting Ethereum, because there was a lot of questions about its viability, among other things. It was really a cool talk, and I would recommend anyone to just Google DevCon 1 and watch a few of the talks. I mean, a lot of them were limited to 15 minutes, which I liked because we live in a TLDR era, so get to the point, and I'm a fan. Unfortunately, I can't do this all in 15 minutes, or I would have. Okay, now Augur is the project that I'm involved with. I joined the team in January of 2015. We didn't have a brand name, we didn't have a brand. I was basically in charge of pretty much everything from day one regarding the marketing of it. And to this day, myself and who I consider the two co-founders are Jack Peterson and Joey Krug. I'm the other member that's still a part of the team as far as that founding group. I'm vested, so I don't like to call myself a co-founder because it's their baby, but I do like to say I am the, I would say like I'm like the fifth Beatle, right? I can't really say I'm a Beatle, but I can say I was there from the beginning and I helped out a lot. It's an open source, decentralized prediction market that is also built on Ethereum. It was the first major project with a crowd sale on Ethereum, and it really set the tone for the successes of the past few, and I'm very proud of that. It was really a thrill to be a part of, and a great idea that I was into from the beginning. I don't know why it says 5.2, it should be 5.3, but we raised 5.3 million, and that was only accepting Ether and Bitcoin. We created our own software for it. We didn't go through Kickstarter or anything like that. This was all done using cryptocurrency, and it was all done with basically an awesome, I wouldn't say project, but an awesome platform that Joey and Jack created. It was named one of the most exciting blockchain projects in 2015 by Coinbase, who I consider to be the industry leaders in this space, and named a breakthrough technology by CNBC and Singularity EU at their Exponential Finance Conference last year, of which we were invited back to speak again this year and will be in New York City on, I think it is June 6th and 7th, or 7th and 8th. So can't wait for that, actually. Now, this is the part where I go a little bit into marketing, because one of the issues I see with a lot of the projects are they're so geared toward developers that the marketing it leaves a lot of people in the dust. This DAO project is something I read information about it multiple times and I didn't get it. I had to have someone explain it to me, and once they did, I was like, okay, this is actually not that complicated, but the way they're explaining it is just difficult, and a lot of projects face this. So Augur had to be different. This had to be something that I could show a 2-minute video to anyone and they would at least grasp the basics. Avoiding jargon, terms that developer use, and this I would say this trend of using big words to make the project sound more intelligent. I think that does everything a big disservice because it loses people, and it oftentimes really comes across as arrogant. So I wanted Augur to be the difference, and it was. And as long as I get the video working, I'm going to show it in a second. I was able to use someone I went to high school with here named John Buttrey, one of the most talented individuals on the planet for the animation. And country singer Shooter Jennings is a friend of mine who loves this technology, and he was able to do the narration for free. And he's a great guy, and he just offered to do it, use a Sirius Studio, and it came out fantastic. It was posted on May 11th last year, and as of now, it is the most viewed prediction market video in YouTube history. By about, I'd say, 190,000 views. And right now we're at 210,000. So to say, it's one of the things I'm most proud of that I've ever done in my professional career. And I'm going to try to get this working. This is the only video I'll show, don't worry. Cool. Now, volume. Is that not happening? It might have to have volume on here. If you can't hear, I'm sorry.
Augur is a prediction market platform that rewards users for correctly predicting future events. Prediction markets allow users to purchase and sell shares in the outcome of an event. The current market price of a share is an estimate by the probability of an event actually occurring. The prices of each share adds up to $1, so if you buy a share at even odds, it will cost you 50 cents. If you end up being right, you'll receive $1 for that share. These markets rely on the science
Fanning's voice is nice.
Shooter is awesome, and you're right, it is great. He hit a home run. And to believe he didn't ask for anything other than probably a thank you. Great guy. So, and if you couldn't hear that, I do apologize, but it's on the web, and I would encourage checking it out. Please, if you like the project, share it. It's the best way to introduce it to someone I've found. So, this is why I show it rather than going into all kinds of detail. Okay, so now to the part that's been really relevant the past couple weeks. Disruption of crowdfunding and the venture capital model that startups have traditionally used in the recent and not so recent history. It's a new method of funding. This is an article from Venture Bee, I believe it was about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago. Blockchain startups made 20% of the largest crowdfunding projects. Augur was one of them featured, including also DAO, DAO that I mentioned earlier, and a few others. Essentially, Ethereum enables developers to develop applications and have crowd sales to distribute the decentralized network token. Decentralized networks traditionally need a token. They serve different roles on different projects. So I don't want to say that one has one purpose and another may have a different one, because they're all so different that going into those details would really do a disservice. But what happens is these need to be distributed. In Bitcoin, they're mined by very powerful computers that perform very difficult mathematical equations. And that takes up a lot of electricity. And a lot of projects, that's for the best. For something like Augur, we needed those tokens to exist from the beginning, because if they were slowly mined, the system would be unusable for quite a long time, which is why the crowd sale model is effective. Believe me, these are controversial, as there's no regulation for them. There's little oversight other than buyer beware. So there's some crowd sales, most of them that I've seen are huge flops. There's some reasons that Augur was a success among the others, and the biggest one was transparency. Everyone on the team had their full name used, their real name, not a pseudonym, not some shady alias. We had our pictures up, and we interacted with the community as much as possible. We talked to people, and we wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we're here and we're doing this for the right reasons. A lot of these projects want to stay anonymous, and they wonder why they flopped. In this day and age, especially in this space, if you are not as transparent as possible, you're not going to succeed. And the transparency level is so high that all of the contributions or people purchasing into the crowd sale, basically the funds can be seen, and the blockchain wallet is open for anyone to see when we made a withdrawal for some funds, converted some to cash, converted to a different crypto. It's all public. It's something actually that you can't do on Kickstarter or pretty much any other crowdfunding platform that I know about. Projects traditionally accept Bitcoin and Ether, and there's this awesome service named Shapeshift.io that enables about 30 more cryptocurrencies to be used and converted to basically participate in every one. Rarely do they accept cash or fiat for multiple reasons. The biggest being the hoops you need to go through, and those hoops are not easy. Also, a big one is that platforms like Kickstarter just don't allow it. So all of these projects are doing this pretty much on their own. They're not using Indiegogo, they're not using Kickstarter, they're not using any of those platforms. They're creating their own software for this. Bless you. The pre-Ethereum crowd sales were MadeSafe, Mastercoin, Musicoin, and the Ethereum platform itself. So these are not new to Ethereum, but Ethereum makes it easier than any have been in the past. The three most successful, they all happened within the last 6 months, and are all on the Ethereum platform, and they're all among the top 25 highest crowdfunding projects. Augur, I went into a little bit, raised 5.3 million. We're currently at number 23.
Can you
Evil number.
talk a little, do you have time to tell us how you made that so successful?
Sure, absolutely. Let me finish this, because I do want to, a little bit is related to Digits too. We raised 5.3 million. Digits, I consulted with them on what Augur did and what I felt was the most important. They raised 5.5 million, but the important note is they did that in 12 hours. So it was pretty impressive. And they're currently at number 12. Now, the big one, and that's the one that happened the past week and has a few hours to go until it ends, is the DAO, which stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. They've raised roughly $145 million in about 28 days. They're the #1 crowdfunded project in history. I'm going to go into a little bit about what they do in a minute. Now, in regards to her question about how Augur did this, what I mentioned earlier about transparency was a huge part. The other part was the video that you saw, making sure that the messaging didn't go over anyone's head. Because the cool thing about it is, if I have a video that helps at least do a decent job of explaining it to my mom, who doesn't get this technology at all, a developer will be able to understand it just as easily and in a matter of 2 minutes. Wasting people's time is something I hate. Nothing bums me out more than people that, when the light turns green, just remain stopped. Because I don't get time back, right? Minor anecdote there, but what I'm saying is I don't want to waste anyone that might be interested in the project's time. That's really important. I also try to use a strategy of less is more. We don't flood it with unnecessary things. Nothing bums me out personally more than useless think pieces that are nothing more than just gathering hype for that day's whatever to try to boost your Google Analytics or your SEO factor. I'm not a fan of that because I think that the people that are interested in your project are not people that randomly stumble upon it on Google, at least not at the part where Augur's at right now. The other is the two developers, Joey and Jack, were insane about answering every technical question, going into great detail, almost too much actually, but it's a great problem for someone that's in marketing like myself to have. I've never had actually anyone that I've worked with be that outgoing and that helpful. That's huge. That's good marketing. Good marketing is good customer service and good communication and good messaging. That's much more important than how many Twitter followers you have. Trust me. If people Google your project and they see that you're being proactive on answering questions, that you're honest, and that you're as transparent as possible, that means way more than, again, Twitter followers or how much hype you have or what are you the best thing ever? It doesn't matter, and especially at this point when you're really trying to gain new users. Something I wish the entire tech space in Silicon Valley would shift to is a more old school approach, because good customer service, good messaging, and things like that are much better marketing tools than what a lot of them are spending a lot of time using, in my opinion. Augur helped redeem a lot of that feeling, but I mean, I'm never one to say that I'm always right, because I'm sure that there's ways that that's not true, and there's ways that the others are important. Not to undervalue social media, it's a great tool for communication. It's overvalued, I think, for marketing a great deal. That went into a little bit of it, I'd say. So I think that there was a lot of other things that happened, including it being the first project, and people had all this ether and they wanted to spend it, they wanted to use it, and this was the first project they thought was worthwhile to invest in. I mean, and back then ether was trading at 50 cents per coin or token. Now it's like $10 to $12.
Was it the first thing that you could purchase with ether?
One of that I knew of. I mean, the other thing too is it really it was the most bear market for anything crypto. Bitcoin was going down in value. If we would have had that sale now, I imagine we probably would have raised between 10 and 15 million. Just speculation, but even doing 5 at the time shocked me personally. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure of all of the little intricacies, but on a grander scale, those are the things that I think were very important. And actually, in courting influential people in both Ethereum and in prediction markets.
Last question. What was your goal, initial goal, when you guys started the crowdfund?
We didn't have one. Our goal was to raise as much as possible, while being honest. I mean, setting goals is important, but setting, especially publicizing goals that there's a possibility you might not meet, is dangerous. Just to be honest and say we want to raise as much as possible, and to be fair, what was more important than that was decentralization of the system. We would have rather had 1,000 people buy in and have raised 1 million than having 100 people buy in and raising 5 million, because the decentralization of the network and the rep holders is far more important than how much we raise, truthfully. We stated that too, and I think 4,000 to 5,000 participated, so we were happy with that as well. Okay. Decentralized autonomous organizations. What's also interesting is this is an idea that existed before the DAO. It's just the DAO has now taken that term and kind of made it their own, almost like Kleenex is now all tissues. So it's going to be interesting to see if that has a name change anytime soon. This is a little slide that one of the investment groups put together called Cyberfund. It's also a decentralized network of nodes defined by consensus, and the difference is it's programmed to perform autonomous transactions by dividing work into computationally intractable tasks, which incentivize humans to do, and tasks which it performs itself. The important things are that it's autonomous, it's distributed, transparent, confidential, and interruptible. Also self-regulating. We go into this a little more too. And by doing that, when I go into this, I'm going to go into it by explaining the DAO, which basically takes these principles and is putting it into actual real-world use. It's a leaderless, crowdfunded Ethereum project, and it's actually redefining what may be known as a corporation or an organization that's existed throughout history. It's a brand new way of doing things. It's a digital organization. There's no management structure, no board of directors, and it invests in projects and businesses, serving as a form of investor-directed venture capital fund. recently there was a law change where individuals that have a net worth or a yearly income rather of less than 200,000 can legally be allowed to invest in venture capital projects. Interesting, because something like this comes out and makes that rather moot, I would say. It seems like they went one step and technology took it 5 steps. So it's going to be interesting to see how they follow this up. It's a set of contracts among people. It resides on the blockchain, and it's aimed to operate as a hub. And it distributes the funds in the form of Ether to projects that are deemed worthy via the voters. So if voters say, we like this project, we're going to fund it, they vote that way, and they get funded. It's kind of that simple, actually. But the actual implementation and the way it works is something that took a long time to happen. Proposals are submitted by contractors with a group of volunteer curators that kind of check the proposals, check the identities, and basically vet the identities of submitters before anything is approved. So they're almost like the only aspect of it that's remotely similar to organizations that exist today. And they're more of just a check of saying, okay, these are legitimate people, this person is using an alias, et cetera, et cetera. The DAO is stateless. It does not exist within a jurisdiction. And that is what takes people a long time to kind of think about. And there's an awesome Hacker News thread, which is where developers hang out, and it was talking about the DAO, and all these really intelligent developers, way smarter than me, did not understand this project at all. And to them, it was just because there's this thing, okay, businesses are this way, right? There's a set of laws that dictate businesses need to be this way in the United States. And there's also laws that dictate businesses need to be this way in Canada, and et cetera, in every country. So what happens when those laws aren't relevant because the organization itself is completely autonomous, there's no leadership, no board of directors, and they don't exist in one area. There's no server that hosts all the info. It's happening around the world. Really an interesting proposal, right? Actually, the Prime Minister of Russia recently spoke about blockchain tech and the benefits and how he considered it to be dangerous. Leaders are taking this very seriously because it has greater implications than they thought Bitcoin would, at least in the near future. 28-day crowd sale raised over, as I mentioned. It's got all kinds of press, so it's giving Ethereum a lot of attention since that's what it's built on. Most outlets, though, outside of the communities like the Ethereum subreddit, things like that, they've expressed confusion, amazement, and most of all skepticism, which is valid. Everything should have skeptics, but a lot of the skepticism is saying, okay, where's the board of directors? And you tell them they don't have one. They go, that's illegal. Well, you're not asking the right question. The question should be, why doesn't this need a board of directors? And what framework exists to govern this? There's none. It's like the internet, right? When it came out, there was no existing regulation on it because it was something new. That's this kind of thing. So when you look at it from that perspective of kind of what's existed in the past in regards to why and how it is, you're going to, I think, hit a lot of brick walls. And bless you also. Decentralized applications, DApps. I'm going to show a few that I did, and I'm trying to get this all in. If there's some time at the end, I'll answer the questions too. Yours, which is just rebranded, is a decentralized Reddit. It's received a lot of press. A friend of mine that I work with at BitPay named Ryan H. Charles is the founder and lead developer. And essentially, the business model is taking a portion of payments between users rather than using advertisements. And it's basically aligning incentives with content creators. Disrupts and decentralizes journalism, well, it can, at least. And it's a financial incentive outside of being paid by what? One of the 3 large corporate organizations that basically control the media. It exists in a completely different way. And it also exists in a way where annoying things like ad blockers, that doesn't need to exist in this space. So, or not ad blockers, but the sites that say you can't use this site because there's an ad blocker, which I hate. It really is trying to solve that. Journalism is essential, and it's more essential now than ever. And creating new incentives for better journalism is something that I think is very, very much worth pursuing. It ensures free speech because it's decentralized. So there isn't a censor, like Reddit now, if someone doesn't like what you say, it can be deleted. And mind you, there's arguments on both sides of this, but I always believe free speech is the most important because throughout history, the most controversial ideas have led to some of the greatest breakthroughs. It would have been controversial to say something negative to slavery in the 1700s, and it probably would have been censored. I want a platform where injustices happen, like all the abuse by police or that have happened on African Americans, or a lot of the shady dealings on Wall Street. I want a place where those can be exposed without fear of censorship. To me, that's important because it serves the greater good. My opinion there's always different perspectives, but that's why I'm a big fan of this project. You can learn more on Twitter, and they're also on GitHub, so you can kind of audit the code. Building with blockchain. Using blockchain for peer-to-peer energy grids. One of the coolest things that's happening, and it happened within the past week or two. Basically, it provides a new platform and a replacement for the existing energy grid, and it provides a network to distribute and sell user-generated energy. So it's a peer-to-peer marketplace of energy. So if you have solar panels and you generated 50% energy that you may not use, you can sell that to a neighbor. Kind of really crazy if you think about it, but also a great way to get around what has been a lot of stifling of promoting the use of solar panels. One of the examples is Brooklyn Microgrid. It's a community-based network and enables neighbors, just like I mentioned, to sell them and utilizing the blockchain to do this. So the energy resource management during power outages and emergencies is much faster, better, and community-based than dealing with DTE. So instead of saying, okay, here's what the map is, you can actually reroute what existing energy works to the places it's supposed to work. It really has great ramifications as far as that goes, much better than what's in place now. And not only that, I'm a big fan of renewable energy, and it promotes that. Transactive Grid is a related project, and it's transparent, audible, non-reputable, peer-to-peer, and cryptographically secure open energy platform built on Ethereum, like, in my opinion, most of the greatest projects are. And it delivers a real-time metering of local energy generation and usage and other user-related data. So this is a big deal, in my opinion, and it shows an immense amount of promise. I can't wait for the next year to see how this works, because it could be one of the keys to getting off our current power grid, which we need to change that. Government services. Blockchain's cost-effective, right? A lot of the services that governments, municipal, federal, state perform can be done much cheaper and more accurately and more transparent manner. A good example, the Estonian government offers blockchain notarization services to e-residents. This is kind of the first one that's actually in place right now. The United States Postal Service is investigating blockchains for electronic money transfers, which I didn't even know that they still do that at postal offices, but they very much do. Identity verification, logistics, tracking, and most importantly, mail identification to say, did this piece of mail get there? They're very much looking into this. Russia is testing blockchain-based voting. Apparently, this is what I'm hearing, implementation plans in 2017, but I think it's going to be a longer timeline than that personally. UK government is investigating it to manage grant distribution and to provide transparent tracking of tax collections and spending. So you can actually see how your tax dollars are spent. Just a few uses. So when there is a political ideology behind a lot of individuals in the community, and it's generally not friendly to governments. I stay out of that argument, but what I do say is that as the world exists now, they are potential customers, and they're also potential users. And especially I think for city services, it's really a great and cheap idea. I've actually worked with someone by the name of Brian Ford, who was Barack Obama's tech advisor, one of his, and he wrote a long report suggesting improvements for the city of Detroit's technology, basically their processes and everything that's very, very out of date. Trying to get a meeting with someone in the city of Detroit to at the very least say, here's some options. If we get something together, can we launch a test for something rather harmless, like permits to fish? I don't know, just off the top of my head. And let's launch a test program. I bet we'll save a lot of money, a lot of manpower, and in the end, we'll also make Detroit really seem forward-thinking in this. But you hit a lot of brick walls, especially with folks that don't understand technology and really have no incentive to switch and are leery of the whole thing. And this is another reason I'm here, is if I can get one person that may have a similar influence, and I might have, because I've heard.
I wanted to say one example.
Yeah.
DPS right now is missing $800 million, and they requested a federal financial audit, and it was denied. And they were told if they wanted to pay $500,000 out of pocket, they could. You can't lose $800 million on the blockchain.
Yes, this is true, you can't. It can easily be traced. And also, what time is it?
1:50.
Okay, so I gotta speak through here.
Sorry.
I don't have too much left though. These are some cool projects that are out there. Storage, it's a decentralized Dropbox. Lease your extra hard drive space to someone else and get cryptocurrency for leasing it out. Factum, they secure data histories with blockchains. Third Key Solutions has a project that basically is a bridge from traditional contracts to smart contracts. Made safe. It's actually, this has been in existence far before Bitcoin was. A decentralized network of users basically aimed to decentralize the internet. Gridcoin. It's a cryptocurrency that rewards contributing your processing power to your personal computer to distributed research projects. So you can actually help these amazing research projects that need massive amounts of computational power and also earn a little money while you're doing it. Here's the part about Detroit that means a lot to me. There's a missed opportunity here, a huge missed opportunity. For the first thing I would say is, I'm going to skip a little bit, so I won't. It's far behind a lot of the other large cities I've been in as far as the number of blockchain startups, and the number of educational opportunities, and outside industry collaborations and media coverage. I wasn't here, but I would say during Dan Gilbert's talk on fintech, if anyone was here, please answer and yell out, how much of the discussion involved blockchain? Was anyone here? Zero. That's Dan Gilbert, right? Yeah. I sent him an email and tried to get in contact with him to invite him to this, at the very least, or say, hey, here's some things he doesn't want to meet with me. In my opinion, if you are doing a talk on fintech or financial technology, and you're not talking about blockchain, it's pretty egregious in my opinion, because inside the fintech world, at least as far as media coverage, conferences, 60% of the discussion is on blockchain. From the biggest banks, from Goldman Sachs to small startups, it's a major, major topic. And it seems like Detroit is lacking in this, and it's far behind, from what I'm seeing. Maybe there's some amazing projects that are in the woodwork, but I haven't seen them. I would say this is also the only blockchain talk for the whole Detroit Startup Week too. I would like to see a future where there's a couple of these focused on different areas. Now here's some good news. It's still in its infancy, and it will still transform. The killer app hasn't been developed yet, and the opportunities are still definitely out there, but it requires an open mind and the ability to challenge long-held and personal and cultural views. And I believe this is probably the last slide. In 2012, I moved to Atlanta to work in this space. I had to leave the state. Much of the business and academic leadership in the area lacked interest. In fact, I knew no one in real life that was interested in this stuff. And it seemed like no one appreciated new ideas. I mean, from even knowing about BitTorrent was drastic. Like I knew very few people that actually knew how it worked. There needs to be, I'd say, at least a mindset change of what's really innovative and what just is someone pitching, oh, this is the Tinder of this, or this is the Airbnb or Uber of this. That is not innovation, believe me. And I think it's happening, but it's very slow. Since leaving, the environment has definitely improved. And as you can see, in 2014, my first time I talked, there were 30 people in Ann Arbor. October, 40 to 50. Now these two were only on Bitcoin. Last year I spoke at Oakland University and there were 80 attendees.
I was there.
Yes, thank you. And I spoke and there were 80 attendees, and it was one of the best, I think it was the best attended AMA event there in history.
I heard it was great.
It was awesome. It's on the internet if you want to look it up. And as of this, there were 95 registered attendees. There's obviously not many people here, but there is more people here than there were those previous ones. So it's definitely growing. If you're interested, here's how to get more involved. Join a meetup. She's a part of the Michigan Bitcoiners meetup, and I'm sure a few others are. They're great people to talk to, get to know. Most of them happen at a bar or a restaurant, so you get a beer. They're very informal. You can learn a lot. The newest meetup is an Ethereum meetup.
No.
Yeah, and the Ethereum meetup focuses on Ethereum, and these are great ways. They're free to join. I would highly recommend it. They've existed and they've slowly grown in the past few years. The other way is follow and contribute open source projects. We have the internet now, so you don't need to be limited to what's near you to get involved or even get your name out there. They're open source, so they're open to contributions. If you're a developer, consider auditing or contributing code. Non-devs, join your project Slack group or their Skype work group. You can learn and build your new community. Study and follow the industry. It moves fast. There's media outlets. There's communities like our Bitcoin, our BTC, our Ethereum, Bitcoin Talk, and they provide news and discussion on everything. And I would say the best way is start a project. Do it